Hi everyone, and welcome to the 8th episode of Beyond Insights. I'm very excited for today's episode because I'm interviewing one of Syft's co-founders and my boss, Vangelis. He's here to tell us how to, grow a startup to a global success. So I think, definitely a really insightful one. So welcome, Van. Thank you so much for joining us. Maybe just to get us started, you can give us a bit about yourself, an introduction.
Awesome to be on, Jody. Looking forward to today's chat. So my name is Vangelis Kyriazis. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO here at Syft Analytics. Long, hard road to get here, I'd say. I studied as an accountant, so very similar to Jody Lee. We actually had a very similar career path, both studying at the same University of Witwatersrand here in Johannesburg. And then I went on to complete my traineeship as an accountant. Post that, I thought I would dive straight into business, and I founded my own accounting firm. I had these big dreams of doing like really awesome businesses once I left corporate and my training contract, but pretty quickly started running out of money, and I thought, let's go back to a business that is tried and tested, and maybe there's a correlation between like boring businesses that are guaranteed to make money or more exciting businesses that may not make as much and riskier, 100%. But it was great starting a business, starting a firm, working with small businesses. And from that, the idea for Syft as a software business was born.
Amazing. I think it's super cool because a lot of our listeners are either accountants running accounting practices, which in effect is a business, or like business owners who are trying to grow their business. So I think you have this beautiful mix of both.
And you get such a good mix as a firm owner. You're growing your own business as its standalone business, but you're also involved in advising your small business clients across a variety of industries around their businesses. So you're not stuck in, let's say, just professional services, because you're seeing what's driving that restaurant's profits, that restaurant sales, and so on.
No, I think that makes sense. Obviously, I didn't start a business, but I had experience in audit. And I think audit also gives you that, like you get a window into the world of other businesses. So accounting practices, I think, are similar.
Yes.
Cool. So obviously, starting a business is not easy. I also played with the idea at some point in my life and then was like, no, I need to learn more. So maybe if you can give us like some insights into what was the biggest hurdle when you were starting out for your own business, for Office Badger and then Syft as well.
Perfect. I think there's always a struggle for like cash in the early days. And I think I wanted to start early because I knew as soon as you start maybe earning higher salaries in like a corporate job and maybe you've got some shares vesting, it becomes harder and harder to leave because there's that trade-off of sort of going from earning to zero and then starting from zero. So I think I was fortunate.
Yeah, very smart.
Fortunate starting early and trading it in early. And then I think those first few customers, you're still trying to define like your product, your service offering. So you're learning all the time. And I think the best advice I can give there is to try, iterate quickly, talk to customers quickly, talk to clients quickly. The more you talk to them, the more you can refine your service offering. And I guess in the software space, we call it this product market fit. But even if you have a service to offer, you want to get it out there in front of 10, 20, 50 clients and see what they need. Does it resonate with them?
I think that's something I've definitely learned from being at Syft is I think often we want everything to be perfect, but I think you'll never know if it's perfect or what's wrong with it, because it will never be perfect until you get it out there and learn. So it's kind of like get it to as good as a place as you can and then put it out there in the market.
Get that one out, see what the feedback is in the customer base. And that allows you to then like take it in and iterate and move on, because I think you don't have all the answers sitting on one side of the table.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. I think you already touched on my next question. What advice would you give your younger self? Do you have any other advice to add to that?
Definitely the talk to customers. I think that's been my favorite takeaway of, let's say, the last, I think I'm sort of 9 years now in sort of business and down the entrepreneurship line of things. And I think that would be the advice to my younger self, like talk to more customers and clients early rather than later on, because that will help you sort of change your service offering and adapt to the markets.
I think that's, you got to really have a lot of kind of put your pride aside, almost like be willing to get criticism, which I think is hard but so important. So
and hard to get as well. I think it's not easy to solicit that from like a client or customer. their first feedback is probably
What's
going to
good?
be to, they're not going to shoot from the hip and really tell you what to
wrong?
improve on now. So
No, fair enough. So obviously you've been running businesses now. So what kind of key financial ratios, we are accountants, we like to think to financial ratios. What key financial ratios should startups be looking at and monitoring?
it has to be cash. Cash is king. So that cash balance, I would say. I think even in our business, JDD, I prefer not to focus on like the P&L and the expenses. We, as a software business, most of our expenses are fixed, being like salaries and a bit of like hosting costs and some advertising. So the other side of that, the revenue side, is driven by like customers and products. So what are we selling to which customers? So there's insights there, but I think as a startup business, you want to focus on making sure you have enough money to get through the month. I wouldn't focus on too much else in like the accounting world in the beginning. As the business evolves and becomes more complex, you can start to maybe get a little bit deeper on the analysis and things along those lines.
No, that makes sense. I think we have a graph on Syft where we talk about break even. And I think often people don't look at it because they're like, we don't want to just break even, we want to make money. But I think it's similar. It's like sometimes we just need to focus on breaking even or managing our cash properly. And then we can focus on growing and revenue, because without cash or kind of breaking even, you're not going to be able to continue.
Especially in that first 6 to 12 months.
Okay, cool.
Focus on survival.
So it's very, very cliche, but cash is definitely king.
100%.
That it's super important in business. So then I think Syft is obviously very innovative, and I think we constantly are innovating. If you've used Syft, you will know that everything's changing. So how do you foster that culture of innovation in a small business? Because I think that's quite key to, I think it's one of the strengths of a small business is that you can innovate. You don't have to like be structured and have big business things like that. But how do you kind of foster that culture in your team?
It's a good question, and I think important as you grow. I think the corporates, you would say like a big company doesn't innovate because it becomes too big and too slow and too much hierarchy and process. At our business, 70 people, I think we still do innovate, and we're still quite fortunate. I think we're always willing to basically start from scratch, rebuild something, and really like look at it again and go from the beginning and build it up. Innovation then internally, I think, is driven because we are more of an in-office company. So there's a lot of collaboration when we can walk over to one another and just chat, spitball some ideas, come up with something, talk about it on the spot, and move forward quite quickly with it. So I think we've tried to keep that sense of innovation by always being willing to like cannibalize our own product and build something new to replace the existing, staying close to one another and having that collaboration in person. So not easy, and I'm hoping we can continue to carry it, but I think we have become more and more innovative over time. I think we've only gotten better, to be honest.
I think I can agree there. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but I think it's quite a different message that in office, like most of the podcasts you listen to and the people you chat to, everyone's talking about working from home, and as awesome as that is, and we also have an element of it, but I do think collaboration, and also for junior staff to learn and kind of foster that culture, it's super important.
A lot of our team it's out of their first or like second job, so I think that learning environment is really like accelerated when you're in person and you're sitting around people talking about a subject rather than waiting 2 hours to get a response on Slack or Teams. It's much quicker to just move forward in person.
No, agreed. So I think those are good points that any business can apply, like innovation, collaborative nature. And I also think it's tone at the top. I think you're never afraid to come and be like, hey, I have this great idea. I think we should do things differently. And I think often in big corporates, that isn't the case. It's like your boss developed that system, so you don't want to necessarily Exactly. So I think that's a tough thing to kind of foster, but definitely important.
I still like, again, back to like a quick V1, let's throw something out, even if we build it in like Excel, which Syft is all about like moving away from. We've started to move back towards it because it's such a powerful tool in most businesses. So even if we can build something simple that's not always like built to perfection and put that out, we can see how people engage, iterate, change, and go for a better V2.
That makes sense. So I think the other key aspect of small businesses that I think is important, or that I've seen at Syft, is transparency. So maybe if you can just give us some insights into if you think it's important in business, and also how do you kind of foster that, and is it important as businesses grow?
Definitely. I think, well, specifically in Syft, I think we try to be as transparent as possible around where the business is headed. So I think First Fridays is a great example. Once a month, we all come together and pitch. Each department head is sort of pitching on what you've done the month before and what you're focusing on. The team get to learn like the revenue numbers, where we headed, where we're making strides, and what we're still focusing on. So I think having transparency around like the broader business helps set a bigger picture. As you grow, it does become harder and harder, and there's definitely a level. You're not going to go and post everyone's salaries on like during First Fridays. There's levels of that transparency, but I do think it's important to like try and reiterate where we're going and why we're going there as often as possible. I think it is harder and harder the further we go, and communication does break down. So I think you can still be transparent, but you still have to work at communicating that often and repetitively in multiple channels, because it can be lost. Different teams working different shifts. Not everyone's on the same page instantly, and that can sometimes cause some frustration.
No, it makes sense. I think the key for me there is transparency that drives like the right things and people knowing the purpose. So I think like if you can all see, oh, this is what we're working towards, and me as X role can contribute towards the growth of Syft, I think that's when it really is important, because often we kind of working in our jobs, but we don't realize like what this actually does for the bigger picture. So I think that's where transparency, like that you're saying, can be really powerful.
100%. It brings like smaller teams into the bigger picture.
So the next thing I want to ask is about scaling your business. So obviously you started a small accounting practice and a small accounting software, but they've obviously grown very big globally. So do you have any tips or insights on how businesses or accounting practices can grow and scale?
I think it's a longer journey than one typically expects. So as I say, I'm probably 8.5 years in now, almost at 9 years. So you think it's going to be quick, 6 to 12 months, and suddenly, So I think we typically underestimate the goals over maybe like the long term and overestimate the short term. So stay at it. I think keep pushing. It took us probably, at least on Syft, 3 years of like complete bootstrapping, putting money into the business to finally start to get a bit of momentum. And then post that, it's another 5 years of like scaling it from there. So a lot longer than you typically think. So have the perseverance, have like the drive to keep going. Scaling then post that, I think we've been really fortunate to bring in like really good people, because suddenly at 70 people, you can't manage everyone and you can't have conversations with everyone. So having like really good leaders in key management positions, I think has really helped us. And I think it's an area that we can continue to invest in as well. As we build out, we need to build in like some sort of structure. It can't be flat forever, but that also allows people to have someone that's invested in their growth at their level and fully like invested in them. So I think that's still an area we can work on more, but I think it has been part of like that second phase of growth of we did it all ourselves for the first half, and then we've brought in like really cool people like you.
Thank you.
To help us with that next stage.
Oh, glad I made it there. But I think it's kind of like innovation and not losing that innovation is what I'm hearing. But then like obviously corporate and big businesses are successful for a reason, right? Yes. So they have structure. So you kind of need to bring those in order to scale and have processes. And I've seen that a lot as we've grown, even in my area. It's like, I could just do stuff, but now there's 4 other people that need to do it. So you have to have a process. So yeah.
Agreed. I think we've definitely wanted to always like reinvest in the business as well. I think that's also part of it. It's easy to maybe like want to like settle down and be happy with it. I think we keep pushing, keep hiring. The team grew 40% at the start of this year, 50 to 70. So it's like doubling down on the team, building I think we want to keep investing in the business to keep going. So I think definitely having like a growth mindset and that the future should be better than today is important.
No, I mean, if you're building a business, you're obviously investing a lot, and we'll actually come to that next. And so you need to believe in it. So then reinvesting is, worth it, right? Otherwise you just take it. But I think that it takes longer than you think one is a very important one to remember, because I've heard that, before as well. And often, you hear these success stories and you're like, oh, they did great things, but you're only seeing the last kind of chapter of the story. Exactly.
Yes, agreed.
So on that, what were some of the biggest, I need to quickly find it because I'm jumping ahead here. What sacrifices did you make in order to grow your business?
I think lots of hard years in the first like 4 years. You putting money in all the time, sort of like earning at like bare minimum, so struggling month to month, and then kind of having that belief, but also putting in massive hours. I'd say like I worked way harder starting my own thing after my training articles as an accountant than I did back then in articles. So probably they were like 12-hour days every day, including the weekend, for like 3 years to try like make enough money to survive and fund the business. So I'd say lots of hard yards and lots of hours. I don't think the 4-hour work week applies in the first 12 months. So I think put in the effort, put in the time. There is like a trade-off, they say, like of like hours in a week that are beneficial. So like 50 is like optimal, but once you start going over that, it still helps, but it starts to decline in like value because you get tired and tighter. So maybe also being able to step back from time to time is good, but it was a lot of hours and a lot of time, and probably is for most people in those early years.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think starting a business sounds tough, but worth it, I think, when you do cool things like Syft.
Yes.
So when you talk about entrepreneurship, what do you think is a key trait? And I think we've touched on some of them, but a key trait for an entrepreneur to have. So
I'm probably beating the same drum over and over again, but definitely that perseverance and persistence. I think, there's ups and downs, it's emotional, there's troughs. It's not only affecting maybe like your social life, but also your financial life. So there's a lot of things that are getting affected by it. So it's probably that persistence to keep going and to probably then have you're resolute to like push on to that 3-5 year mark, even in the face of, there were tough times for us in 2019 when we were considered shutting down the business because we had worked on Syft for 3 years. We were making something like $2,000 a month in like revenue, and we were still putting in money every single month to fund this thing. So like after 3 years, your confidence wanes and you're like, is it time to throw in the towel?
Makes sense. I'm glad that you didn't, so that we can be here today. I appreciate that. So obviously it sounds like a real roller coaster. But what is the most surprising thing about business for you, about running businesses?
Sure. It's a good question.
Van was the one who interviewed me when I was applying for Syft, so now I'm returning the favor.
Giving those questions back,
Yeah, exactly.
I think you go from doing everything yourself to trusting in people to do it. So I think it's really been awesome, like building a team and working with other people. And then also you could probably attest to my management style. It's very like
awesome.
Not micromanagement. Let you run with things and try to figure things out yourself. So I think being able to like transition from doing things myself to like having a team has been awesome. I think it's like really changes over time, and you start to trust in people, give them the freedom to get stuff done, and they actually over deliver a lot of the time rather than trying to control outputs and like micromanage it. So it has been that transition from like lone wolf to team has been pretty cool.
So I think it's also, people often think of management as like when you in a business, you are a manager, but as a business owner, you are managing like everyone, right? So you have to kind of deal with all those elements. So that actually is surprising about running a business. Obviously, long term, you get managers to manage more people, but ultimately, that makes sense. I hadn't thought of it like that. So also want to
self-dubbed myself delegation king now, just for.
I can attest to that as well. But I'm going to do something.
Maybe something that you need to be inspired on and start delegating.
I'm going to practice more. So I think the other thing I wanted to ask is, so again, it sounds like a roller coaster. So maybe what failures did you experience when starting your business, and how did you manage your expectations and feelings, and like maybe any keys to, we're saying perseverance is important, but sometimes maybe it's hard to actually persevere. Was anything that like helped you keep going? Or
I think in the early days, I mean, you're gonna have ups and downs. You're gonna win customers won't pay you. You're gonna have done a ton of work for them and then not get paid for it. So I think there's always those highs and lows, of winning a deal and not winning a deal. I think the satisfaction of like closing a sale is always like really high, but then you can lose one, or you can not get paid, or you can lose a customer. So I think that was quite a bit of like a roller coaster early on. Highs and lows, but keep going. I think having a support system and people that believe in you outside of the business. I think they never really know the extent of like how hard you're working or what you're working on. So I guess it's always easier for external people to maybe say, do this or take the money or go down this route. So I think trust in your own convictions as well. You can have that support network, but they'll never be living what you're living and be in it to your extent. I think they can give good advice, but again, you're the only one that knows like the right decision at the end of the day.
That makes sense. So obviously now you are a global business. Syft is the successful global business. We are talking a lot about ourselves today. So do you have maybe just some insights into, what it's like, challenges of going from the startup to growing, and then any kind of suggestions for other startups out there on, what it takes to grow into that successful business and, when they all get there, because that's the goal after all this amazing info, some tips on that as well.
Awesome. So I think we were really fortunate as a software business. We are able to cross like international lines and do business on a global scale without having to be physically present in those countries. So really awesome business model first up, because people can buy it on the internet without you having to be face to face or deliver a physical product. So that naturally lends itself to like globalization from day one. Then we had some like positive global trends. Firstly, like cloud accounting, going from desktop accounting to the cloud has been like a macroeconomic trend over the last, let's say, 15 years, and we've been able to ride that wave. And then I guess like a negative global pandemic in COVID, but a positive for South Africa because it brought us closer to the rest of the world. Suddenly, video and virtual became the norm, not something people would miss meetings on and sort of not show up. So maybe like good timing, a little bit of luck, some positive global trends, and then the ability to be like a global business from day one was helpful for our business. So it is, we didn't think of that in the beginning. We thought we were building a visualization tool that might help us deliver like a better service, and we only thought about South Africa, and suddenly doors start to open as you grow. Like you don't see the path 3 bridges down when you're at this bridge. So without taking the first steps and like diving in, suddenly you learn more about the market, you see other competitors, other things that you could do. So hard to from the outside, maybe you in, let's say, like a job at the moment and you want to start a business. It is, I really think, hard to do it by just like researching and thinking about it. Once you take the first steps, doors start to open that you actually can't see from the outside. So
no, that's super interesting. As you were starting, I was like, okay, cool. So, choose your product well, do all these things. And then I'm like, no, actually, like it's back to what we started saying is iterate, right? Start with something, try, and then you'll realize that doesn't work so well. Let's try something else. And then
over many years and like many iterations, you get to something that's
it's great.
Looks great now, but wasn't as great 5 years ago.
That makes sense. And I think it comes back down to like being like open to opportunities. Like, I think I know when I was in 2020 and I was back in audit in those days, and it was terrifying because no one knew what was going to happen. And obviously it was terrible for lots of reasons, but you were like, how can we make the most of this situation? So I think looking for opportunities in every negative almost,
I think at the time we probably didn't realize it. We were also like, we had gone from operational to like fully remote. Obviously customers were canceling because like
they didn't know what was happening as well.
What was happening. So we started to worry from that perspective. But then like as time went on, like suddenly we started to have our best months ever. And like then in hindsight, we could see that it was really like a positive for the business and not a negative. I think discretionary spend, or let's say software spend in SMB, probably suffers during a recession, which is what happened initially in COVID, but then followed by like stimulus, low interest rates environments actually turned out to be really good for us. Yeah.
No, I think it's always look for the rainbow in the storm, or the silver lining in the cloud, all those. I'm all on cliches.
Brought your book of cliches.
There we go. Go check my notes for all of them. But I think it does speak to like just making the most of opportunities, and I think that resilience and that, all those things are kind of speaking together. But it's, if you're going to run a successful business, what I'm hearing, because I'm just part of one, is, to really be pushing, managing, pushing hard, being resilient, looking for those opportunities and just trying, like not being afraid to just go for it and try.
100%.
So I think we have a few more minutes. I just wanted to maybe touch on one more difficult question. So obviously you are the CEO of Syft Analytics, an awesome company. So as the kind of CEO, where do you draw the line between getting input and making decisions? How do you kind of grow and make decisions? Like now there's a big team that's involved. It's not just you and the other founders. Even there, how do you kind of get input into making decisions?
I guess you actually don't really make that many massive decisions. So
cool, nice and easy.
On a day-to-day basis, I think like there's a series of like small decisions, which I guess doing it for a long period of time, kind of you just sort of know which route to go down. It kind of becomes a little bit more impulsive. I think we'll definitely like anything bigger, you want to like take always like worthwhile to take like a night to sleep on it, reconvene the next day. No point rushing down a decision on the spot. So I think take some time, sleep on it, wake up fresh and like make the decision in the morning is good advice. We still relatively small and like a small team that's pretty coherent. So it's easy for us to like on the spot make a decision. I guess we don't want to like change direction all of a sudden at any point in time, but like sometimes it's like this seems like something we should do. Let's pivot something from here to there, because it makes like a lot of sense on these things. So we don't want to do that too much, because I think it's also like rattling and maybe like the team does need like direction and wants to head in one way. But I think we are fortunate that we can make decisions pretty quickly. But you're still quite a collaborative decision-making process. So may have the title of CEO, but it's not a dictatorship, I like to think.
Good, yeah. No.
More like we're basing it on feedback. And again, people that are deeper in the problem are better able to make a decision. You working on something in your space, Jody, you should make the decision there rather than trying to tell me the facts and ask me for my opinion. If you've worked on something for 2 weeks, you know the ins and the outs, so you can run it past me, but I prefer you to make the decision. So also maybe delegating the decision making, not just the work.
Of delegation, big again. No, that makes a lot of
delegate
sense.
my job, man.
Not
the salary, please.
No, but I think that makes sense. I mean, it's a collaboration. That's how you drive innovation, and I think that's a sign of a good manager or business owner, not pretending to know everything or know what's best in everything, but rather kind of getting the right people. That's what I'm hearing. So the last question is, we've spoke a lot about your journey and business and Syft. And do you have any other things you'd like to share with listeners, things that they should learn as they go and run their own businesses to scale them to success?
I guess we probably have a mix of an audience today, people that are either working in a job and accountants and bookkeepers, either working for a firm or sort of running their own firm. I think double down on what you're currently doing. I think I was probably guilty of not working like hard enough in my own articles and sort of putting in the time, but it definitely doesn't go unnoticed. We can always see people that are working the hardest, putting in the extra time. And it actually is where you get the most enjoyment, because you go like above and beyond expectations and try find enjoyment in like what you're doing. I really enjoyed actually working in my firm because I got to speak with business owners about their business. The conversations were like really intense and really like deep on their specific problems and things they were trying to solve. So that actually became the more enjoyable part. So obviously you're doing all this like bookkeeping work, payroll, tax return filing in the background. And then you're maybe spending an hour with this client. So try to take joy in like those interactions and like the people around you. You can probably learn a lot from them, whether they're customers, clients, or people around you. So dive in,
try the best. And that's obviously where you learned kind of was the start of your next venture. So kind of do the best in what you are currently doing.
100%.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Van, for joining us, and thank you as well for joining us. We'll be back next week with another exciting episode. But I hope that you all learned how to take your startup to global success, or just to become a more successful person in your own sphere wherever you are, using some of these tips. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast.
Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now.
And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast.
That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.